Chapter 1. The First Biblical Dialogue. On a spring evening, Georgi prepared a cup of black tea, sweetened with honey and a slice of fresh lemon. In the quiet of his room, he focused on his chemistry exercises for the upcoming graduation exams. Sitting at his desk, he felt the gentle spring breeze caress his face, while the last rays of the sun pierced through the window, illuminating the pages of his notebook. From the following list of elements, select all those that react with formaldehyde: copper, N2, Ag2O in NH3 solution, CH3OCH3. Suddenly, his train of thought halted abruptly. His eyes drifted toward the falling darkness framed by the window of his small bedroom. The night captivated him. He tried to discern and comprehend the most universal sound, the one that haunts human existence. It was the chirping and the tweeting blended with the rustling of leaves under a brisk wind. It was a light rain in the background, under the moonlight. Drops of fresh rain falling on those same leaves, drawing out the earth's petrichor. This intoxicating, exhilarating scent filled the human soul with the joy of our favorite memories, those that arise ephemerally, randomly, suddenly, paralyzing us with their contradictory intensity in the face of everyday life. To a sodium hydroxide solution weighing 1,200 grams, 490 grams of a 40% sulfuric acid solution are added. It took 143 grams of crystalline soda to neutralize the resulting solution. Calculate the mass and the mass fraction of sodium hydroxide in the initial solution. In your answer, note the reaction equations indicated in the problem's conditions and provide all necessary calculations, including the units of measurement for the required physical quantities. The beauty of each day was unveiling itself before Georgi's eyes. It wasn't the specific color of a singular day, but a rainbow representing the entirety of his short life. He imagined how a given color bound itself to an emotion. Black, the ecstasy of the unknown. Green, the serenity of a maple tree before a storm. Blue, dawn on the battlefield. Red, the crisp warmth of an emasculated enemy. Pink, his limbs severed with a dull, straight razor. He demonized his enemy, the one he was preparing to confront in the coming weeks. These thoughts granted him a certain serenity, gave him the strength to press on. It was late March. For over a month, the Beguiling Serpents had been scrutinizing the situation, meticulously assembling the pieces of the puzzle to reach Stanislav Kirienko, the mayor of their hometown. Kirienko was responsible for ordering several large-format billboards installed downtown, justifying and glorifying the war with the hashtag, "We don't leave our own behind." He fervently defended the invasion of Ukraine, proclaiming it a sacred mission of New Russia. This official was the very incarnation of corruption, propaganda, and fabricated truths, a true plague that stoked tensions and fed hatred. Sergei noted, for instance, that Kirienko's speeches heavily pushed the notion of the fatherland, a concept that easily breeds discord.
Concepts like fatherland or patriotism are artificial constructs that the state uses to serve its own interests. A community doesn't need them. We should simply live, let others live, and direct our efforts toward the general well-being. No fatherland is really necessary. In reality, these fatherlands suddenly emerge when a small man, driven by an inferiority complex, wants to prove to the whole world that he is a great man leading his country, his fatherland, toward an equally great future. Ultimately, we end up with millions of dead, wounded, and wasted hours of labor, just to satisfy the complexes of a gnome in search of grandeur.
The confrontation with Kirienko had quickly imposed itself as a priority for the three young men, a necessary step to put an end to his harmful actions. They were well aware of the difficulty of the endeavor, but the shared injustice and indignation that fueled them provided the vigor required to undertake this mission. It was the second-to-last class of Friday afternoon, social studies. The teacher was reviewing articles of the Constitution. Sergei's thoughts drifted elsewhere, still absorbed by the absurdity of Kirienko's speeches. Georgi, meanwhile, watched a magpie through the window as it hopped from one branch to another, then down to the ground and into a bush, not emerging for a long time. For his part, Navasard was mentally preparing for the next class, physical education. His goal was to break his own record and run 100 meters in under 12 seconds. It was his personal challenge, his ultimate ambition, to surpass the performance of the best athlete in the class himself.
I was so close, just a few fractions of a second away.
Exactly. Next time will be the one.
Navasard wiped heavy drops of sweat from his forehead and cheeks. A light spring breeze brushed past, drying his palm and leaving a refreshing chill in its wake.
Has Sergei already left?
Yes.
What did he tell the teacher?
He has a medical certificate for his heart thing. He's excused from sports.
I know, but the teacher always forces him to do chores instead.
You're talking about Sergei. He sneaks off on Friday evenings. Igor is the one doing those chores.
Really? He still hasn't beaten Sergei at chess?
Nope, still hasn't.
Starting that Friday, they began tailing Kirienko, observing his daily routine, taking turns over 3 days. First Sergei, then Navasard, and finally on Sunday, Georgi. His routes, his habits, his behavior, every single detail had to be taken into account. In the locker rooms, they said their goodbyes. Navasard turned left, heading toward the cafeteria, while Georgi went right, toward the exit. In the hallway, he walked past the door to the girls' locker room. It was left ajar. Through the narrow gap, he caught sight of a back illuminated by the setting sun. A white, light, almost transparent dress rested delicately on her shoulders. The zipper was in the back, undone. The girl was twisting strands of her hair, weaving a braid. An earring swayed, a golden sphere reflecting rays of light just as golden. The shadow of a branch caressed the paleness of her skin, embraced her elegant silhouette, brushed against her back, her fingers getting lost in her blonde hair. Georgi stood motionless, trying to capture the ultimate beauty of this ineffable and irreproducible moment. A beauty he preferred to admire from afar, without ever seeking to understand it, so as not to corrupt it, at least in his own eyes. This scene, imbued with grace and mystery, made him realize once again that life harbors precious moments, meant to be savored with delicacy and consideration, appreciating the slowness of the instant. She turned her head and met Georgi's gaze.
Anya, you're taking your time.
You too, you pervert.
She turned her head back around.
You knew the door was open, and yet you casually expose your back, you exhibitionist.
I do it on purpose. The zipper isn't easy to handle by myself.
Isn't there a girl around to help you?
They've all left.
She tied an elastic band around her braid.
And what if it wasn't me walking by?
I would have said the exact same thing.
Georgi crossed the threshold of the forbidden zone and took a few steps inside.
Do you just barge in everywhere uninvited? Or only into the girls' locker rooms,
She held the braid over her shoulder.
Only the girls' locker rooms.
He moved the zipper up, pulling the sides of the dress together. Anya turned her head, then her whole body. Their eyes met again. Her green eyes were a rarity, an exception, a natural anomaly in the North Caucasus region. Georgi unfailingly lost himself in them, ever since they first met in their first year of elementary school. She wielded a strange power over him and the direction of his thoughts throughout his school days. Before those innocent eyes and that face, his thoughts multiplied uncontrollably, exponentially. He wanted to tell her she was sublime.
That scar on your neck. I never noticed it before. It seems to follow the path of the jugular vein. You know, that's one of the most important veins in the human body, connecting the top to the bottom, constantly nourishing them. Looks like you brushed with death.
You still don't think before you open your mouth, do you? Do you remember that story you told me years ago about how you traveled with your mom to the shores of the Black Sea?
Ah, yes, that one.
How on the last day of vacation, the owner of the cabin you were renting came up to you and asked you to pass a message to your mother, saying you had to vacate immediately.
I remember it very well. No need to say it all out loud.
Your mom, after hearing you out, replied that the bitch could go fuck herself, remember?
Honestly, I remember it perfectly.
So you went back to the owner and told her, "Mommy says you can go fuck yourself." What I'm trying to say is, be careful. We live in a small town, everyone knows everyone, and I'm not an idiot.
You're the best student in our class, and you always have been, I know.
I'm not talking about school performance.
And I'm talking about your perceptiveness.
I know the war has affected you. I know you and your idealism.
How is your mom doing, by the way? Her family is from Mariupol, aren't they?
Anya averted her gaze toward the window. The sun painted the clouds a brilliant orange while vanishing behind the horizon.
Don't project your problems onto me. You can convince yourself you know people all you want, but you're wrong. You only know the side they want you to know.
The final bell echoed through the empty hallways. It was time to go home. They stepped out into the twilight and went their separate ways. Georgi waved at Anya's father, Bagrat, who had come to pick her up. His car belonged to a category far beyond the means of Georgi's family, whose mother worked in a small shop. Bagrat, a business owner operating in Armenia and Russia, moved in a circle that Georgi could only dream about. 2 days later, on a Sunday, as Georgi sat on a bench across from Kirienko's apartment building, he watched couples strolling peacefully by. He found them curiously silent. A blonde woman, heavily made up, entered the building. Her elegant silhouette immediately vanished into the concrete bowels.
That scar on Anya's neck. It's as if I've seen it somewhere before. Or was it a dream?
On the 7th floor of the building, on the balcony, Kirienko was smoking. Georgi told himself he was watching a soon-to-be dead man live. The potion would alter him until it killed him. He remembered the film shot in the streets of San Francisco on April 14, 1906, 4 days before the great earthquake that nearly destroyed the film reel forever. In it, you see life passing by between Market Street and the Ferry Building. A camera, mounted on the front of a streetcar, slowly advances, capturing every detail. People crossing the road, horses pulling carriages, young girls and boys following the camera with their eyes, curious, bewildered, full of life. Yet, at the moment Georgi watched the video, they were all dead. Nothing remained of them but a sequence of blurry, black and white images. A woman joined Kirienko on the balcony, the same blonde who had entered the building earlier. She was sipping tea, or perhaps coffee. Then they both disappeared, and a light flipped on in the adjacent room. An escort, no doubt. The light went out, and a multitude of colors began to flash rapidly, painting the ceiling and walls of Kirienko's living room. It was the television. Darkness and a crisp chill gradually enveloped the city. About an hour later, Kirienko stepped out and headed toward his car. Georgi got up and mounted his electric bike. He waited for Kirienko to start the engine and pull away from the building's vicinity. Then, Georgi tailed the car, maintaining a safe distance. The small road led to one of the city's main arteries, then onto another, and over a small bridge that connected different districts. They reached the area where, perched on a mountain plateau, the wealthier class had made their home. The steel and concrete buildings absorb you and then leave you isolated, carrying away distant echoes of something precious and profoundly humane. Brutalist architecture, with its rigidity and simplicity, annihilates all forms of individualism through its austere facades. The streets of this neighborhood, however, painted a completely different picture. Trees raised their majestic and imposing silhouettes, their foliage filling the sight and the soundscape, rendering the scenery almost primal. This beauty, much like many aspects of contemporary provincial Russia, had its roots in corruption. Indeed, the municipal budget allocated for urbanization and tree clearing vanished every year without a trace. Officially, it was absorbed by expenditures deemed more critical. For example, the mayor's salary, or subsidies for a tourism company registered in his wife's name. Traffic was challenging at this hour, particularly before the bridge. A garbage collector was busy cleaning in front, clearing away human waste and impurities, slowly, like the city's immune system. Cars slowed down and stopped under the dense foliage of the Central Park Road, then started again, distancing themselves and drawing closer in turns. In this waltz, Georgi crossed the bridge and entered the mountain woods. A winding road continued downward, the light began to fade, and the air grew heavy with the scent of petrichor. A few kilometers further, the road straightened and split into several perpendicular dead-end streets. Just as Georgi turned and spotted this series of exits, he also saw Kirienko pull into one of them, a few hundred meters ahead. Georgi spotted the street. At the end of it, facing a 3-story manor, sat the car he had been tailing. After a moment's thought, he got off his bike and walked slowly, still deep in his thoughts. The last rays of the sun brushed against the young man's cheeks. The star creator of humanity was radiating its warmth. It went through Georgi's being, filling him with energy and determination. A plump cloud drifted lazily across the azure expanse, momentarily covering the source of light. The wind stilled, and cherry tree branches followed suit. The green of the plants and the white of the cherry flowers froze into a landscape worthy of divine creation. It was a suspended instant, right before the sun would set and turn the sky into a funeral pyre.
That bastard's dacha only has 2 cameras. One at the outer gate, one inside. He thinks he's untouchable. It's unbelievable. He's genuinely convinced he's unreachable, above the people, who, let's face it, do nothing to prove him wrong. And that only reinforces Kirienko's belief in his celestial predestination, as if his politics actually made the people's life easier or happier. Mostly, we are blinded, manipulated. Our thoughts are boxed in, confined to the borders imposed by these morons. Only 2 cameras. He isn't afraid of anything.
Navasard and Sergei exchanged a look. They wanted to point out how lucky Georgi had been to locate Kirienko's dacha, but they didn't reply. The Georgian restaurant had just received a tasting crate from a new wine producer. If the owner, Sergei's father, and his family circle liked the product, he would order more for the restaurant. Sergei was part of his father's inner circle, and his friends were part of his. Thus, the opportunity to savor an unreleased wine was offered to everyone that evening.
A fleshy aftertaste actually pairs quite well with this aroma. Look at the ruby red color in the light. The wine must be at least 4 years old. What does it say on the label?
Navasar turned the bottle in his hand.
2017.
Almost. The aroma is truly complementary, which makes it harder to pin down. On the nose, it's both floral and vegetal, a blend of honey and wood. You can feel the passion and care that went into the production.
Very interesting.
Yesterday I read something interesting. Every new British Prime Minister, as soon as they take office, must meet with the Chief of the Defence Staff. Once the Chief finishes his briefing, he goes away, leaving the Prime Minister alone, who, at that moment, must handwrite 4 identical letters, based on their conscience, their opinions, and the information revealed by the Chief of Staff. They are written by hand, old school, no computers, no typewriters, just a pen and a sheet of paper. The drafts are shown to no one and are destroyed beyond recovery. Once the letters are completed, they are carefully sealed and sent by a special messenger to 4 submarines equipped with nuclear ballistic missiles. The letters are placed in a secure safe, which is itself stored inside a larger safe, like matryoshkas. The letters of the former Prime Minister, once their term ends, are removed and immediately destroyed without being opened. They call these the letters of last resort. Can you imagine the weight of the responsibility that falls on you during this task, which intensifies and amplifies as you write those letters?
Let's hope a doctor doesn't become Prime Minister. I could never read their handwriting.
Or an Indian chef. There are plenty of those in England.
Why?
he wouldn't understand the assignment and would leave behind the recipe for chicken tikka masala instead of directives in the event of a nuclear force majeure.
Ordering to cook and savor a tasty Indian dish right before the apocalypse. That's a directive too, and a rather benevolent one at that.
Responsibility toward oneself and one's people is a noble concept. Do you think Putin has ever assumed it, even briefly during his reign?
He is corrupted by something evil. He lost his way a long time ago.
I've already told you about my encounter during the coma. It was Marduk, a monotheistic Mesopotamian deity known by nearly 200 names. The Mesopotamians celebrated this divine figure through a singular ritual, the Akitu. During this ritual, the emperor was led outside the capital, therefore beyond the safety of the community. He had to remove his royal garments, kneel, and then a priest would slap him and force him to list his shortcomings for the year, the times he had failed to embody a good Marduk. Tears had to cover the emperor's face for the omens to be favorable. Marduk, this god with multiple eyes around his head, spoke through magic words, thus symbolizing meticulous observation and careful speech. In this way, the emperor was led to meditate on his failures regarding the principles of sovereignty, enduring humiliation before a transcendental power greater than himself. Putin, on the other hand, hasn't faced such questioning in a long time. He is indeed corrupted by evil, just like all the other politicians.
Delivering the world from evil, or at least trying to, is the noblest mission. It's a deeply Christian idea too. The orthodox notion of katechon is exactly that. Humans live to counter evil, nothing more, nothing less.
We begin in a week, Sunday night. We'll catch him at his dacha. By the way, I wanted to ask you, sir, is it true you're still beating Igor at chess?
Yeah, every Thursday evening, after shop class. The woodworking teacher is a huge chess fan, actually.
I have him as a teacher too. Did you know he carved and sculpted the chessboard and pieces himself?
Those are exactly the ones Igor and I play with.
The teacher must really like you guys.
He likes to watch our games. Plus, Igor never filters his blabbering about the necessity of Putin's policies. How the ex-Soviet people only understand the language of the iron fist. How only Russia respects principles and morals and not the West. How the new Cold War, which would lead to the polarization and atomization of the globalized world, is a necessity. How Pan-Slavism remains a reality, even more prominent today, and all that, you know.
What do you reply to him?
Nothing. His verbal diarrhea makes his gameplay too aggressive and, let's say, poorly thought out. He loses half his pawns in 6 moves, then his more important pieces.
Sounds like speeches on imperialist grandeur go to your head.
And so, I win. Better to be intoxicated by wine than by speeches and subjects you only partially understand.
A good toast.
I have to say it. This wine is delicious. Tell your dad to compliment the producer.
I will. One last thing. Don't forget what I saw on Friday when I was tailing Kirienko.
I took note. 3 hours at the church, at Mass. He's quite religious. I'll adapt his trip accordingly. The most important thing is that he didn't go to a pharmacy while we were watching him. So, theoretically, he isn't on any medication. Any treatment can interfere with the quality of the trip. I've also chosen the most suitable method. We'll make him drink black tea steeped at 60 degrees. Psilocybin, which is the most important hallucinogenic element in magic mushrooms, breaks down faster at 100 degrees, so we need to lower the temperature, and black tea to mask the moldy taste of the mushroom. I'm saying this mainly because, given his spiritual devotion, he most likely has a character that is easily impressionable by a hallucinatory experience.
The truth is, we all are, whether we admit it or not. Atheists see ultimate beauty. Agnostics see universal randomness. Believers see the omnipresent God. Euphemisms to designate the exact same transcendental thing, which reveals itself the same way for everyone, by crossing through hell.
Indeed, the Bible exerted a profound influence on Western civilization. particularly on its legal, ethical, and cultural systems. As early as the Middle Ages, the Bible was not only a spiritual source, but also a foundation of legal and moral authority in Christian Europe. Biblical principles, such as equity, justice, and mercy, were integrated into the development of canon law and, later, into secular legal systems. For example, concepts like testifying under oath, protecting widows and orphans, and the idea of fair justice find their roots in Mosaic law and the teachings of Jesus. Furthermore, the Bible influenced the arts, philosophy, literature, and social mores of the West, serving as a reference text for debates on morality, ethics, and human conduct. Its reach remains such that it continues to shape contemporary debates on matters of law, politics, and personal values. Georgi understood this, seeing it as a metaphorical and metaphysical shortcut to justify the moral side of his battle against corruption. The serpent was the most cunning of all the wild animals the Lord had made. It asked the woman, "Is it true that God told you, 'You shall not eat from any tree in the garden'?" The woman replied to the serpent, "We may eat fruit from the trees in the garden, but about the fruit of the tree in the middle of the garden, God has said, 'You must not eat it, nor touch it, or you will die.'" The serpent retorted, "You will not certainly die, for God knows well that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." Eating the fruits of the tree in the center of Eden therefore opens our eyes, kills us, and makes us divine all at once. Such is the first biblical dialogue, the very first time two beings converse and debate ideas, at the core of the book upon which our civilization is founded, an interaction that underscores our relationship with nature, with randomness, with the omnipresent God. A conversation that ultimately leads to the fall of humanity.
Семь ангелов тихий, невидимый ряд, семь труб замолчали, не глядя назад. И на каждом лице в этой липкой тени мы видим лишь отблеск ушедшей любви. Лампа мерцает, как блик на воде, тень растворилась в ночной пустоте. Слышишь, мой брат, этот шепот в тиши, то, что не слышат лишь сны для души. Семь ангелов смотрят в пустое окно. Нам было все это давно суждено. Мы просто играем в чужую судьбу и ждем, когда небо отдаст эхо мольбу. Когда агнец снял свой тяжелый запрет, мир замер в поклоне, не видя ответ. Над городом ночи немая зола, как снег на асфальте, что жизнь замела. Лишь в сумраке комнат, где лампы горят, бредут одинокие, пряча свой взгляд. А если нет знака и пепел, как пыль, город проснулся, но это лишь быль. Город не спит, он уходит во сны, где зов утихает под грузом вины. Семь ангелов смотрят в пустое окно. Нам было все это давно суждено. Мы просто играем в чужую судьбу и ждем, когда небо отдаст эхо мольбу. пустынным, где лампы горят. Сердце стучит, как обратный отсчет. Время уходит и нас не спасет. И над нами как будто немой приказ. Белая немота накрывает всех нас. Ангел поднимет трубу, тишина, и рухнет последняя в мире стена. 7 ангелов смотрят в пустое окно. Нам было все это давно суждено. Мы просто играем в чужую судьбу и ждем, когда небо отдаст эхо мольбу.